What is up, guys? Welcome back. We got another good episode for you guys here on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. My name is Kyle. We're going to be hanging out for the next, half hour, 45 minutes, going over the Week 3 waiver wire for you guys. We'll pull up a lot of things here and reference them along the way. If you guys do have waiver wire questions, please get them in the comments, and we'll get to them as we roll through. I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping out of the way real quick. It's Week 3. If you guys are not on the Fantasy Fellowship .com yet as a member, you're missing out. I have a lot of things going on here. I just uploaded my rest of season rankings today. I also put up weekly rankings. We also have a more in-depth waiver wire for you guys to look at. You got members, get a Discord link, a lot of good stuff in here. Weekly rankings, the sit charts are up, and the post-game notes is probably my favorite thing that I put out there for you guys. So a lot of good things in there, and then the rest of season rankings are up as well. But we'll hang out and talk about the waiver wire. I do have a free waiver wire piece on here. Shout out to Daniel, Aiden, and Harris in the chat room with us tonight. I'm going to get to Daniel's question here in just a second. I'm just going to pull up my favorite ads for the week here. And waiver wire, man, it's important. It's what wins championships. There's a lot of injuries, a lot of stuff going down. We got Daniel asking, should he accept Garrett Wilson for Waddle and Ford? I did message, I responded to your comment, I think, on one of the YouTube shorts. I think I'm taking this deal. We did get Tua Tagovailoa news today where he's on IR. He's going to be out for at least 4 games. And honestly, who knows if we see Tua Tagovailoa again this season. I think that moves Waddle down to, more of a wide receiver 3 flex play than a smash wide receiver 2 that we drafted. And then with Jerome Ford, I think the usage there was very concerning. They brought in Deonta Foreman week 2. He didn't play at all week 1. And week 2, Deonta Foreman out-carries Jerome Ford by 14-7. Let me pull this up real quick here. We'll see if we can find the Browns. Ford still played the most snaps, ran 15 routes, 2 targets and 7 carries. But Deonta Foreman with 14 carries, 1 target. The backfield, he gets the goal line usage. He did have a short yardage carry as well, and a little bit of third down work here. I think Jerome Ford's stock is down after week 2. I'm going to take Garrett Wilson, who I think, he didn't have a great game last week, so you're still getting a potential buy low opportunity here. He hasn't had the blow-up game. I'm upgrading Waddle to Wilson, and then Jerome Ford. Who knows what happens when Nick Chubb gets back here? I still think Ford's going to catch passes, but I'm totally cool with this. I would go ahead and do it, Daniel. Harris says, should I drop Taysom Hill and Tajay Spears? So did we get a report today on Tajay Spears? I think Taysom Hill is droppable. The Saints just use 3 tight ends. They like Foster Moreau a lot. Moreau leads them in snaps every week here. 10 routes, 0 targets. Taysom Hill only getting 3 carries, 1 target, and 7 routes. They're just mixing in, and they're almost having too much success with some of the other players where they're not needing Taysom Hill. If the Saints were bad, they probably would give Taysom Hill the ball more. But for now, I don't think Taysom Hill is having that season that we projected at the beginning of the year because the Saints are just overplaying what we projected. So I'm fine with dropping Taysom Hill. I would try and hold on to Tajay Spears if I can. If this is a shorter, 10-man league, I can see him being dropped. I'm looking for a Tajay update here. It sounded like he's going to be fine. He had an ankle injury. I don't think it's anything too crazy. I would hold on to him but if you need the space to go pick up a guy that we're talking about, whether it's Foreman, Steele, or Pirine, or one of these guys, I think I'm fine with it. Aiden says, in his 14-man, we have some claims in dropping Wilson for Steele. Doubt I get him. Also dropping Luke McCaffrey for Hunt. Wilson. I'm not sure who Wilson is. Is that Russell Wilson, Roman Wilson? One of the Wilsons for Steele. I like Carson Steele. We should probably talk about the Chiefs because that's a big one. I want to talk about the Chiefs tonight. I want to talk about the Rams, and then maybe we can touch on Deebo Samuel. But the Chiefs, they're kind of already showing us what's going to happen here. Pacheco, he had a great game on Sunday, 20 routes run, 5 targets, 19 carries. They're not just going to give all of this to one running back. They're going to split the difference here between Steele, Pirine, and then I think a sneaky ad after your waivers run tomorrow, you could pick up Clyde Edwards-Helaire and move him to your IR if you have that ability, because he's going to be back, I think, for week 5. So he could factor into this. I don't think Steele or Pirine are going to be league winners, but I think they're going to be useful pieces for us. So I think for me, you can see Carson Steele got 7 carries. Pirine got 0. Pirine did get a target and he caught the ball. And he's the better third down kind of, pass protector and receiver. You can see Pirine here. He played 4 out of 5 third downs. He also got a few, he got 5 of the 15 2-minute drills. So that might be all Pirine, 2-minute drill and third down. That might be heavy Pirine here. I'm also thinking he might see some of the early down work, but you can tell here Carson Steele is the other guy that they've been giving the carry. So if there is, in this game they had 26 carries. Maybe 18 of those are Steels and maybe 7 to 9 of those are Pirines. I think you're going to see those two kind of mix that up. Maybe it's like 60, 70% Steele, but Pirine will be the receiving back. So if you're in PPR, I like Pirine, but if you're in a touchdown league like standard or half PPR, Steele's the value there. So I think there's room for 2. So I'm cool with trying to get Steele here. And then we're dropping Luke McCaffrey for Hunt. We're not sure if Hunt's going to sign with the team. We also have to remember the last time we saw Hunt, he wasn't that great. So, but Luke McCaffrey, the Commanders' rookie wide receiver, he didn't have the best game last week. He looked promising in week 1, but he fell down to wide receiver 3. In week 2 here, he did run 23 of the routes, but 0 targets. I'm getting nervous here about the target distribution for the Commanders. I don't know if there's anyone that I really want to start. Even Terry McLaurin didn't have the best game. So slight concerns there for the Commanders. I think I'm fine with it. And hey, good evening to Justin. Hope you're doing well, man. Then I have a claim in for Akers if I don't get either one of those guys. I do like Cam Akers. I think he is one of the sneakier ads. We can look at the Texans real quick. I think they're all the way at the bottom. So the Texans with Joe Mixon, being hurt roughly half the game, we saw Darrell Ogunbowale get 20 snaps, 11 routes, 2 targets, and 2 carries. Cam Akers will be the primary ball carrier here. He had 7 carries, 1 target, 6 routes. He did lose a fumble, and I think he would have played more snaps on that last drive had he not fumbled and got the touchdown. So that does kind of ding him a little bit, but we also have to be careful here just in case Dameon Pierce is back. He missed with a hamstring injury. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice reports will be very key for Mixon and Dameon Pierce. If both those guys are out, I think I'm comfortable starting Cam Akers if I need to, especially in your 14-team league. I think Ogunbowale is just going to factor in with a few carries and a few targets, but Cam Akers potentially has the ability to get those 12 to 15 carries in a game. So I like Akers. Hopefully we get some news soon on Mixon and Tajay, or not Tajay, Pierce. Tolbert over Jennings. Let's talk about Tolbert. So, and this was a weird game. The Cowboys were playing from behind. They had 70 snaps, 46 routes. This is not a normal game for the Cowboys. But it was interesting to me to see Jalen Tolbert lead them in snaps, lead them in routes, lead them in targets. Brandon Cooks kind of disappeared in this game. He only had 2 targets. He had a carry. He's still out there in 3 wide receiver sets, and they ran a lot of 3 wide receiver sets in this game. But there is some momentum here for Jalen Tolbert, where I'm not saying to start him this week. I do think Juwan Jennings is a better start this week over Tolbert. But if you need something long-term, Tolbert is the right pickup, and you can probably get him for pretty cheap because I don't think a lot of people are looking at him yet. He's had 1 okay game, 8 targets, man. And, CeeDee's going to continue to be the lead guy here, but they have open competition for that number 2 weapon, especially with Jake Ferguson missing time still. Don't know if he's going to play this week, but even if Ferguson returns, Tolbert could still be that number 3, number 4 target, and I'm willing to add him to the bottom of my bench to see what happens. So for short term, I'm going to start Jennings this week if I had to choose one, but I think if you can hold on to a guy, I'm holding Tolbert over the course of the season. And I think there's a chance that he might be better than Brandon Cooks at this point of his career. Cooks had a nice week 1, but Tolbert is the year 2, possibly ascending player here. They clearly like him if they're going to give him the most snaps in the route. So I think where there's smoke, there's a little bit of fire here. So I like Tolbert as a sneaky ad for tomorrow. Are you concerned about Anthony Richardson? I don't think so. The Packers had a really nice game plan for him, and he struggled to throw the ball down the field in this one, and that's where he kind of makes his money. He's a really good downfield passer. He's not such a great intermediate and short thrower. Even Pittman had 7 targets, but he couldn't really get anything going downfield. Pierce is looking nice because he's more of that boundary vertical receiver. That's what Anthony Richardson excels at. And then, Mitchell had a drop or two. There were some moments here that was missed by the Colts. And they get Josh Downs back, which I think is going to help balance the offense out and give them that underneath target that can beat one-on-ones. So I'm not concerned about Richardson. He looked great running the ball in the first game. He didn't run the ball enough in this one, only 2 carries. So I'm hoping that this is kind of the floor here. We saw what it looked like. It was 9 or 10 points. I'm hoping that this is an outlier in his season and that we can continue to trust him as our QB1 going forward. So not concerned yet. If it happens again this week, we can be concerned. It is a tough matchup on paper. The Bears defense is very good, but I'm hoping Richardson can run and boost some of that stuff with his legs. Tyler Bass or Hyunghoe Koo. Let's go to the FF Today machine. I mean, I think Monday Night Football, you got the Bills hosting the Jags. I think that's a nice matchup for him. Bass he's only had 4 attempts this year. He's 3 for 4. I think Koo, where's Hyunghoe Koo? Down here, he's 4 for 4 with a couple extra points made. They're kind of the same player right now. If we let's go look at fantasy points allowed real quick to the kickers. The Falcons allowing the most kicker points right now, but let me see the Jaguars. Jaguars have allowed 5 field goals to be made this year so far, and the Chiefs going against the Falcons here in Atlanta. I'm still going to lean Hyunghoe Koo here, but they're pretty much the same. If you're more comfortable with the Bills scoring points, I think they're going to score a lot of points against the Jags. I think I'm fine with Bass. Jeff Wilson. Yeah, Jeff Wilson. We're waiting for tomorrow's going to be a big injury report day for the practice report. So I don't know if we're going to see Jeff Wilson. Typically, oblique injuries are a week or so out. They did play last Thursday, but I think that team's just going to be very cautious now. So I'm fine with letting go of Jeff Wilson. Hunt did get signed. I saw he was in for a tryout. So he's on the practice squad. So I don't think he's going to play this week. He might be eligible to play week 4. But I'm open to adding Kareem Hunt if you want to. I still think Steele and P. Ryan are good players for the short term. But again, adding Kareem Hunt now, possibly Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is looking like a full-on committee here. So I still think Steele will be the short yardage goal line back. So like in a half PPR or standard league, I still like Steele. Full PPR, I still like my guy Samaje Perine. But Kareem Hunt last year, let's see what he did last year. So he did score 9 touchdowns last year, which was a lot. He had a lot of moments here, but a lot of not so great moments as well. 9 points, 10 points seems to kind of be his average. But the yards per carry wasn't there behind Cleveland. I'm worried he's not that great of a player. He can be a part of a committee. I don't think he's going to get the featured bell cow role that he once had there. But I think he's a fine ad late. Hunter Henry or Mike Gesicki. So I'm gonna assume that we don't see T. Higgins one more week here. Let's go to the Patriots. I like Gesicki. It's still a little hard to trust. And I mean, honestly, Hunter Henry's not really easy to trust either, but 10 targets, man. I think he's very clearly a guy that Jacoby Brissett trusts. I still like Hunter Henry. I think he's a little safer than Gesicki, but Gesicki's got the matchup this week. So if we're just talking for 1 week, I'm going to lean in Mike Gesicki here. They run a lot of tight ends, but he ran the most routes of the tight ends, 9 targets to lead the way. And if we look at the fantasy points allowed machine, let me go check that out real quick. I mean, the Commanders are one of the worst defenses in the league. It's not a surprise here, but they are, for some reason, they haven't allowed a lot of tight end points this season. If I go to PPR here, that's running back. Let's look at the tight end. I mean, they've only allowed one catch for 5 yards against tight ends. So I don't know if that's just a weird scheduling coincidence, but it's a good matchup. So I'm going to lean Gesicki for this week. I don't really want to be involved in tomorrow night's game. Christian, good evening. Who do I add on the waiver wire? QB, Baker, Carr, or Anthony Richardson? Richardson's available. That's pretty nuts. I think that's like the no-brainer. It is a tough matchup this week. If you're only adding a guy for this week, I mean, the Bears have been pretty stingy here. They've only played Will Levis, and CJ Stroud did play well. But I think I'm adding Anthony Richardson here if you need a QB, man. Derek Carr's been hot. Eagles have not been great here. That's one of the better matchups. And I think the Broncos defense is still pretty good. So if I'm ranking these guys, I think I'm going to take Anthony Richardson, and then I would go Carr and then Baker as the third. But I'm probably just going to lean with Anthony Richardson, man. I think he's got a safe floor, and we know what his ceiling can be. And yeah, the Chiefs running backs, man, we got to get one. I think it's still worth putting, $8 to $10 or 8 to 10% on Carson Steele. Again, he just signed today, man. He's going to be at practice with them tomorrow. He's probably not going to be, and he's on the practice squad. He still has to get onto the 53. Maybe by week 4 he's able to play. But just because he's on the practice squad doesn't mean we're going to see him next week either. So I like the signing, but I think if you need a running back to play for you this week, Steele is still worth that. And honestly, he's looked good in the preseason, short yardage. He did have the fumble last week, but I do think Steele is probably the guy that you want there. Okay. Inceptivus, good evening. What defensive kicker do you recommend streaming this week? Let's take a look here. Go to projections. I mean, Tampa Bay against Denver. Tampa Bay is only 3.2% rostered. That's going to be one of the easiest calls here. It's at home. I absolutely love Tampa Bay this week, so they're number 1. I'm fine with the Raiders, but Andy Dalton, maybe there's some new confidence there for the Carolina Panthers. I think I'm going to rank Buccaneers number 1. I do like the Seahawks, but they're 53% rostered. I think the Colts are interesting, but we really haven't seen them play well. The Bears have been pretty bad, but I think Tampa Bay for sure. Packers intrigue me against Tennessee. It's on the road here, and they're going to continue to rely on that running game and play good defense. So I think Bucks, Packers, and then if you can get Buffalo, I think Buffalo's a good one. 15% rostered here at home against Jacksonville. They really haven't been able to get it going. Those would be my top 3 choices if you can get them. And then maybe Seattle. So Tampa Bay, Packers, Buffalo would be my top 3. And then for kickers, oh my goodness, for kickers this week, what are the kicker matchups? Let's see who's allowing the most points to kicker so far. The Falcons, you got to have Butker. The Jets, don't know if I want to rely on the Patriots kicker tomorrow night, but I'm open to it. The Panthers, I think if you can get Daniel Carlson, that would probably be a good pickup here. I'm not sure. Let me look up and see some kicker numbers here. Chase McLaughlin at home against Denver sounds pretty good to me. And again, I like the Raiders kicker this week. Where is he? Daniel Carlson against the Carolina Panthers, I think makes sense. He's only 3.6% rostered. Otherwise, McLaughlin, and then maybe the Saints kicker against Philly or the Cardinals kicker. I think those are some good numbers. That's probably a bit too high for Tolbert, I think. What's he being projected at? About 8.6. I think somewhere more in that $8 to $10 range is probably a better bet here. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of guys gunning for him. There's going to be guys looking at Jennings, at the Rams receivers. Probably $8 to $10 for Tolbert should do it. Christian's got Bowers and Mark Andrews. Should I drop likely if his week one performance was a fluke? I don't think it was a fluke because it shows that Likely's still a good player, but there's going to be Zay Flowers is the number 1 receiver there. There's going to be spike weeks for Mark and Likely. If you can try and trade Mark Andrews and hold Likely, I think that's an option too. I don't think you need Bowers and Mark Andrews, but if you have to cut Likely, I think I'm okay with it. Johnston or McConkey? Good evening, Jeffrey there. Let's pull up the recap here from the Chargers. I think Quentin Johnston's the #1 receiver ad of the week here. He led the team in snaps by a good amount, 48. Next closest was 34. He ran the most routes on the team with 19 and 6 targets. And it's going to be a matchup where they're going to have to throw the ball more this week. They're not going to, be playing with a big lead like they were against the Panthers. So 6 targets in this game, 6 of 19 targets for Quentin Johnston's a pretty nice target share. I'm going Quentin Johnston. I like Ladd McConkey in this one, as there should be more 3 wide receiver sets. He should, have some higher percentage targets, but I'm willing to ride the hot hand here with QJ. It looks like he's taking over as the #1 receiver. I want to see it one more week before I really trust it, but I prefer Quentin over Ladd McConkey right now by a little bit. I think Ertz is pretty safe going up against Cincinnati. Jonnu, I don't trust with Skylar Thompson, even though there could be a lot of dump offs. I'm open to that. But I'm probably going to rank them Gesicki, Ertz, and Jonnu. I don't want to play Akins. I thought I did see a report on Njoku that he could play this week, so we'll have to watch for his reports. Stefanski says he wouldn't rule out Njoku for this week, so maybe there's some hope there for Njoku, but I'm going to go Gesicki, Ertz, and then Jonnu. I don't know if I want to cut Madison, especially since you just paid for him. The Raiders are going to be a mess every week. Now they get the Panthers this week, so I think you're going to probably see a good game from Zamir, probably a good game from Madison. I didn't like seeing Abdullah mix in more than he did week 1 here. He had 2 targets to Madison's 0, but it was nice to see Madison get a crack at the goal line. 1 for 1 here with Zamir White. You also saw Madison, the primary third down back still. No 2-minute offense, though. So I think we're looking at a guy that we're probably never going to really trust now that Amir Abdullah is added to the mix. But I'd hold on to him if I can. If you can find a way to sneak, I think Downs is going to have more startable weeks for you in the long term, though. So if you are okay at running back, I think I prefer Downs over Madison straight up. And no, we cannot drop Jalen Wright. If you're in a shallower league and you have to drop Jalen Wright, I think it's okay. But with injuries to Mostert and Jeff Wilson now, like Wright's looking like the #2 back already. And if they continue to use Achane at this rate that they're using him, I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up. So I'm holding on to Jalen Wright in leagues that I have him. I would hope to do so as well. Big week for Pollard. It does look good. The Packers' run defense has given up points here. They rank 25th here. They're giving up 26.9 PPR points per game. They've given up 100 yards in back-to-back games to rushers. I think Pollard is in for a nice day here. And, if he falls in the end zone, that's what's going to make it sweet. So Pollard is a start this week against the Packers. Pirine or Algier, full PPR. I think Algier is the primary hold for me just because we saw him look good last night. Let me go find that real quick. He doesn't play a lot of snaps, but when he is in, he gets the ball. And he still looks good doing so. Let me pull up last night's game. So only 13 snaps is a lot less than what we were thinking, but 4 routes, 1 target, 9 carries. He touched the ball 10 times on his 13 snaps. So he's purely a handcuff for Bijan Robinson. If anything happens to Bijan, you have a potential league-winning back here. I don't think Pirine's got league-winning upside in his arsenal. Again, he's going to be in a rotation with Steele and probably Hunt now. So, you're probably not starting Pirine or Algier. If you're starting one this week, I guess I would start Pirine. But long-term, I'm going to hold on to Algier. Good evening, David. So I'm really big into Josh Downs. I think he was their best receiver this summer, and I think he's going to be the guy that leads the team in receptions the rest of the way. Pierce, I like Pierce. He's going to continue to run a lot of snaps, and he's going to continue to be that deep field guy. It looks like he's holding off Adonai Mitchell pretty well. I mean, he led the team in snaps, routes, and targets last week. I don't know if that holds up. I think long term, I'm gonna go with Josh Downs, who I think they like a lot as a slot receiver for them. But it's close. I think Pierce, honestly, Michael Pittman's kind of dead to me. I think I'd rather have Pierce and Downs over Pittman right now. So I'm gonna lean Downs in a full PPR league. You're probably gonna miss out on Hunt if you do that. I don't think anyone's looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So the way to do it is to wake up tomorrow morning. You can drop a player and then put Clyde Edwards-Helaire on your team and then IR. I think that's probably the way to do it. Because I'm assuming Hunt's going to get picked up in your leagues. So I don't want you to miss out on Hunt. If you do miss out on Hunt, though, then you can try and get the Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I don't think anyone's doing that. What are we doing with Jared Goff? He hasn't looked the greatest through 2 games here. And last week we did see them have to air it out. I mean, they threw the ball 58 times, 53 total targets. I think Goff will be fine in the long run. It's a great matchup. Like, this is a great week for Jared Goff going to Arizona. I think that's going to be a shootout. I saw 52.5 points implied in that game. So I think better days are coming for Goff and Laporta. But I'm getting a little nervous on Laporta, man, because we did not project the Jameson Williams to have the usage that he's getting right now. And it looks like Sam Laporta is kind of the odd man out in this offense. But he'll have better days. But it's still one of the best offenses. I know Goff doesn't run the ball much, but he's going to have games where he's throwing 303 touchdowns soon, and it might even be this weekend. So hold on to Goff. Amari Cooper, he's not a drop. He was so close on a few plays on Sunday here. Like, he's still running all the routes and all the snaps, and he led the team with 8 targets. I think better days are coming. And then the other part of that is the schedule coming up for the Browns is really sweet. I know Cooper has not been a lot of fun right now. What league is this? Let me go to, where's Elijah Moore? Okay. Elijah Moore's a sneaky ad, by the way, too, if you need some depth. But they're going to get the Giants, the Raiders, the Commanders, and the Eagles the next 4 games. I think better days are ahead for the Browns passing offense. Hold on to Cooper. Don't drop him. You can try and trade him at some point in this nice stretch coming up, though. I think there's going to be some big games for Cooper coming up. We got offered Tyreek and Coleman for Devonta and JMO. Why do I not want to do it? Tyreek and Coleman. Because Devonta and JMO are the better players. Yeah, not accepting that at all. Devonta and JMO, those guys are both, really solid number 2, number 3 receivers for your fantasy team. Tyreek dropped to a wide receiver 2 for me, and Coleman's not even startable. So I think Devonta and JMO are the much better side. And hey, thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys all in the chat room hanging out with me on a Tuesday evening here. Rabe, we traded JMO for B-Rob in a PPR league. Thoughts? For context, I have Rice, Garrett Wilson, Ayuk, and Devonta Smith. So, yeah, it was tough to get Jameson Williams in the lineup with those 4 guys. So I think I'm fine with that. You're going to see Ayuk blossom into the wide receiver 1 that we thought he could be with Debo out here. So he wouldn't crack this top 4. And if you needed running backs, I think Brian Robinson right now looks really good. He is the primary part of this offense. He's had 2 usable weeks, 17 and 14. He's getting a touchdown every other game here. He looked great against the Giants. I like the schedule coming up here, the Bengals and the Cardinals. He's got the Panthers down the road here. And he's getting reception still, which I thought he might get phased out. So I think B-Rob is a pretty nice running back 2 right now. So assuming you upgraded your running back room, you got a starter here for a bench player, I think it's a good trade there, Robin. You got Saquon, Swift, and Brooks. So yeah, I think we're kind of panicking on DeAndre Swift in the Bears offense. So you get a starting running back 2 here with B-Rob. I think you did a pretty good deal. Would you drop Thielen for Downs? If Bryce Young were the quarterback, I'd say hell yes. But with Dalton, there might be some signs of life. You got to remember, Andy Dalton played a really nice game with Adam Thielen last year. I think he had like 10 or 12 catches in that game. So I noticed all the Panthers guys got a little bit of boost in the rankings this week. I think I'm going to lean Adam Thielen here slightly over Downs. It hasn't been great for Thielen, but he's getting the snaps and the usage that I'm looking for, and we expect the Panthers to be trailing. I'm going to hold on to Adam Thielen here, as I think he still can offer you some usable weeks. Where are we? And yeah, he's running the most routes, most snaps. I like him and Deontay with Andy Dalton. Send Darnold or Carr. I don't know if we're sending them in a trade or not. I would prefer Derek Carr long term for the whole season if that's what we're doing here. So I guess send Darnold. I don't know if that's start for this week. I'm gonna go with Derek Carr against the Eagles. Drop Goddard for Henry or Gesicki. Goddard seems to be ignored in Philly. And yeah, that was frustrating last night. Even with A.J. Brown out, he still couldn't get there. He's running all the routes, which is great, but only 4 targets. I think he's just a guy that's going to be 6 to 8 fantasy points, and you're praying for a touchdown in that offense. So I don't want to drop Goddard, but if I have to, I think I'm going to go with Gesicki in that offense. I know T. Higgins is coming back, but Henry just seems hard to trust. It's on a Thursday night against the Jets. I don't really want anything to do with that. So I think I would go with Gesicki over Goddard for this week if I had to. Can we drop Leggett in 10-team leagues? Sure. In 12-team leagues, I think it's still there for him, but Jonathan Mingo playing better. Leggett's probably not a hold right now. And yeah, let's talk about the Rams receivers. That was one of the talking points I wanted to make sure we got to. All right. Okay, so Tutu Atwell's not in the conversation here. The 3 wide receiver sets are DeMarcus, Tyler Johnson, and Jordan Whittington. Tyler Johnson's in the Puka role. Jordan Whittington is in the Cooper Kupp role. I think the preseason was really, really good for Whittington. I think he's the most talented player between Johnson, Robinson, and Whittington. So he's the guy that I want here. I like Tyler Johnson, but he's just not a great profile that I want to bet on. I'm going to bet on Jordan Whittington. If I'm ranking the Rams receivers for this week, I'm going to say DeMarcus Robinson, Whittington, Johnson, Atwell. For the rest of the season, I guess as long as Kupp and Puka aren't playing, I think Whittington is probably the guy that I want on my teams. And yeah, if you need the help, man, I would take a shot on Whittington as well. DeMarcus Robinson's the guy I want to play this week because he's the guy that I trust the most. But I can see Whittington's role growing and being a heavy piece of the offense for the next 5-6 games while both Kupp and Puka are out. And even when Puka returns, there's a chance Whittington just cements himself in as that number 2, number 3 receiver. So Whittington would be my choice. It's hard to say on Tuesday night. We got to see the practice reports tomorrow. I'm leaning towards doubtful still, but if he's able to get a limited practice in tomorrow, I'd feel a lot better about him playing. For now, though, I'm going to assume he's not playing. I thought Schoonmaker looked good in his stead, so I don't know if they need to rush him back. I'm going to lean towards doubtful for this week. And yeah, I'm glad you asked. That's a good question because he's when a team plays on Thursday night, we all kind of forget about it, right? But I thought Shakir cemented himself on Thursday night as the Buffalo Bills receiver to own. He played 17 of the 20 routes, led the team in targets though, 5 targets, 1 carry. Keon Coleman can't separate. I think Keon Coleman's droppable in redraft. You don't want Mac Hollins. I still have a glimmer of hope for Curtis Samuel to be of use right now, but he's only running 8 routes out of 20, so he's probably droppable in redraft leagues. Honestly, Khalil Shakir is the guy in this offense going forward, and I think I'm comfortable with him as like a low-end wide receiver 3 flex. Like I'd rather play Khalil Shakir over any of the Rams receivers. I probably play Khalil Shakir over like guys like Jalen Waddle. He's entering that top 36 area for wide receivers for me. So Shakir is the guy. I saw he was, I don't know, maybe 40-some% owned on ESPN. He would be towards the top of the list for me. And I did rank him after Shaheed. Like I want Shakir over Quentin Johnston. Keep an eye on Romeo Doubs too. If Romeo Doubs is out there, guys, I think he's a guy that I want on my teams for when Jordan Love returns. Covey's not an ad. He had 6 targets, 6 catches for like 20 yards. He's literally just a dump off guy at this point. If you need some dirty PPR points and AJ Brown's going to be back probably week 4. I don't want Covey on my teams. Mooney all day. Mooney looked great last night. They did have a miscue on one play where he stopped running, but they were able to figure that out, and I saw them talking actively on the sidelines. I want Mooney over Leggett all day. Foreman, Steeler, Pirine, half PPR. I really like the run out for Foreman for the next 3 games. I don't expect Nick Chubb to be playing week 5 yet. So for the next 3 weeks, if that's my timeline, I think Foreman's a startable RB2. I think he's going to get touchdowns. I think he's going to get the ball double-digit carries each game. Steele, I think, is going to continue to lead the team in carries for the next 2 or 3 weeks, but he's not having a much PPR or half PPR upside. And then Pirine and half PPR, those guys are kind of a wash, Steele versus Pirine there. So to me, it's Foreman. I would rank that Foreman, Steele, Pirine in a half PPR format. If I'm starting one of these guys, Malik Dalton or Skylar Thompson, I'm going to go with Andy Dalton against the Raiders. I would rank them as Dalton, Willis, and Skylar Thompson. In redraft leagues, you could probably drop them. I don't think we're going to see anything like the Commanders' offense. It's going to need to evolve, and we'll see if Jaden Daniels can improve along the way. But I don't think there's room for a second or third receiver that we're going to trust in fantasy football this year. It would probably take an injury to Terry McLaurin for us to be interested truly in Luke McCaffrey. You have Terry, you have Zach Ertz. Those are probably the top 2 targets in Washington right now. And then it looks like they're developing Diami Brown, Noah Brown. You also have Olamide Zaccheaus there. It's kind of muddy in Washington, so I don't think I want to go with Luke. Good evening to Randy. Would you start Deontay Waddle or pick up and play Jawan Jennings for the week? I think I'm going back to the well on Deontay Johnson. I actually have a similar predicament where I'm benching Jaden Reed and I'm benching Brian Thomas Jr. to get Deontay Johnson in my lineup. Deontay still looks good. He's been open on a lot of plays. Bryce Young's just been so bad that he hasn't been able to find it. So I'm starting Deontay Johnson over those guys that I mentioned. I think you should pick up Jawan Jennings if you need to, but I don't really want to play him against the Rams, man. Like we're probably looking at 25 to 30 Jordan Mason carries in this one. And if they are throwing, it's going to be a lot of Ayuk and Kittle, and Jawan Jennings is just kind of that third target in the offense. So I'm going to start Deontay, who I think is the number 1, number 2 target at least for Andy Dalton. And I do think Jennings is a good pickup, but I'm still a little uneasy on starting him this week. Ty Chandler looks great. You want to hold on to Ty Chandler. Like it's playing out exactly like we kind of projected this summer, where if they don't have a competent RB3, and we saw Aaron Jones leave the field, Ty Chandler came in and he got all the work, and he looked good doing so. 10 carries for 82 yards. He's going to get targets. I think Ty Chandler is one of the top handcuffs in football right now. And he also actually has some weekly upside too. If you needed to start him as RB2 in a pinch, you can hope for something. But I like having Chandler on my bench right now. I'm going to rank them as that: Deontay, Waddle, and Jawan Jennings. Just very nervous about, and Jawan did play good, or he played well in this game here. 3 targets in that offense, 31 routes. He's going to jump up to that higher route percentage, but I don't see 35 targets for the 49ers this weekend against the Rams. It's probably more like 25. So you're banking on a touchdown there, which never feels great. I think he could do it, but Deontay has the safer floor for me. I like Jawan, but I'm still going to rank him last. I think I'm going to go with the talent: Deontay, Waddle, and then Jawan. There's a little bit of context is needed there. If you needed Mooney to be your starting wide receiver, like your wide receiver 3 flex, I'd be probably comfortable going up to like $14, $15. If you just need him to add to your bench, my bid's probably going to be like $9, $10, $11, something like that. So if you need him, like go and pay for him. Like he's going to be a valuable piece of that offense, and he looks pretty good. But if you just need a bench piece, like I think just paying $8, $10, something in that range is probably where I would bid for Mooney. Andy Dalton in a super flex league. If you really, really need him to start for you as your QB2, you probably got to go, $15, $16. If he's just a bench QB3 for you, probably, again, like $10, something like that. But if you need him to start for you, you got to be aggressive and probably go up to 16, $17. Najee, Chuba, or Ford at the RB2, full PPR. I'm going Chuba Hubbard, which sounds a little crazy, but I thought Chuba looked good. Despite the Panthers playing like the Panthers last week, Chuba still came through for us. He is he's the primary back here. He gets 2-minute and third down work. They did give some short yardage to Miles Sanders, which is concerning. But Chuba out-touched him in both weeks, 10 carries, 4 targets. Najee, he's going to get the carries, but you're banking on a touchdown there. He's just like a 7-point play. I think I'm going to lean with Chuba here. Panthers getting more exciting. I think Ford's probably the safest play. I think he's still going to get his 7 to 10 carries and a few targets. So if I'm going to rank them, I think I'm going to go Chuba, Ford, Najee is kind of where I'm at. Whew, that's a lot of injuries. If you have Tua, if this is a super flex league, you got to hold on to Tua. If it's a 1 QB league, I'm dumping Tua. There's other guys, there's other options. I'm dumping Tua in a 1 QB league. If you're holding on to Jonathan Brooks and Chubb, I think you've kind of made your bed. You got to hold on to those guys. I think Andy Dalton coming to this team actually brings some life to potentially Jonathan Brooks returning at some point here. The arrow is still not exciting for both Brooks and Chubb, because I think even when Chubb returns, you still have to deal with Foreman and Ford. So, if you can move one of these guys, I think I'm doing it. If it's a super flex league, you got to hold on to Tua probably, but if you need to make a move, I think Tua is the one to cut of the 3, but I think you got to hold on to Brooks and Chubb there, as that's kind of what your plan was. I think the Steelers are elite, man. You can play the Steelers defense. You can play the Steelers D. Josh Reynolds looks like, if I have to own a Broncos receiver, like Reynolds is the guy that I would want from the group. He's had 2 nice games in a row. Where are my Broncos? He's kind of the number 2, number 3 target here, but I don't want Sutton on my team, Little Jordan Humphrey, whatever. Reynolds is just he's a deep play. If you're starting Josh Reynolds, it's not good, but he can be one of the guys at the end of your bench. Tank Bigsby, we're holding on to Tank Bigsby. He got hurt. He's still a good player. I think he's going to enter the mix in this week, and it sounds like he's not in any serious trouble of missing significant time. He might miss week 3, but I still want Bigsby on my team if I can hold on to him. Shaheed, Tyler Johnson, Jennings, Steele, Piron, Foreman. Yeah, I would get Shaheed. If you can get Shaheed at number 3, I think that's worth it. I mean, he's a fantasy starter right now. He's in that mold of Jameson Williams, Xavier Worthy, just that deep vertical threat that can make your week. And as long as the Saints offense is looking like this, like Shaheed's a must-start player. And against the Eagles, I think Shaheed's going to have a good game. I wouldn't lose my number 3 priority for Johnson, Jennings, or any of the running backs, honestly. So it is for Shaheed. Otherwise, I'm going to wait and hold on to that priority. I thought Naylor looked good, and he had kind of been the guy that was popping in training camp for the Vikings. You can see his snaps increased here heavily. Once Jordan Addison returns, though, he's probably not a guy that we're going to really want on our teams. This is kind of just a 2-target offense. You also have TJ Hawkinson returning week 5, 6, sometime in that range. So Naylor's really only useful if Jordan Addison remains out, and the long-term look here on Naylor is not great. So he's more of just a short-term 1 to 2 week play. Okay. Yeah, I'm starting Derek Carr against the Eagles here. The Vikings, tough matchup against the Texans here. I'm going with Derek Carr. Oh, man. Yep, they could use you, Nino. They could use you. Neighbors is that dude. I still love DJ Moore as the player, but it looks – to me, it looks like the offensive coordinator needs to be fired. He did not have a good game plan at all. He could not protect Caleb Williams. They were doing 5 wide, bringing in no extra blockers. Still a good player, but it's Neighbors is the clear guy you want over DJ Moore right now. Pick one to drop: Tank, Reynolds, and Tua. Tua. If it's a one QB league, Harris, we're dropping Tua. If it's between Tank and Reynolds for me, I'm dropping Reynolds just because it's the Broncos. I don't want a Bronco. Yeah, I think so. I like holding on to. I don't think it's pulp time yet, but it's trending in the right direction. He's up there running routes, but as long as Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback, it's not pulp time. I think when it does transition to May and they're dropping back, 35, 40 times and throwing the ball a lot more, I think that's when it's Polk time. So stash Polk, and if it looks good again in week 3, we can reevaluate. But I think he's the guy that you want to be ahead of on the waiver wire. I think he is the number 1 receiver for the Patriots. I think I am starting Shaheed over Waddle and Deontay. I would rank Shaheed ahead of those guys for this week. I think he's a clear top 30-ish receiver right now, and the offense is hot. Eagles defense is not – they have a lot of names in the secondary, but they're still giving up points to wide receivers. So I would rank them Shaheed, Deontay, Waddle for this week. Yoshivas is he's a short-term player right now. You do have T. Higgins coming back at some point soon. When Higgins does return, that pushes Yoshivas to wide receiver 3. He's going to compete for that number 3, number 4 target spot with probably Gesicki and Higgins. So he's a short-term play right now. As long as Higgins is out, Yoshivas is startable. And, these injuries are a common thing for T. Higgins. I think Yoshivas is worth holding onto your bench even when Higgins returns. But, as long as Higgins is out, Yoshivas is startable. But when Higgins returns, I'm a little nervous there. You got someone you got to be patient with. Judy and Moore. Both those guys look pretty good. And I'm willing to buy the Browns passing offense perking up here over the next 3 weeks. I don't think we're using Elijah Moore. You can add him in deeper leagues if you want. Judy looks like he can be trusted, though, as a wide receiver 3 flex. He's had 2 nice games in a row, and I love the schedule coming up here. But I saw a couple cut-ups where Cooper was just 2 or 3 plays away from really having a big day. So I think it's coming for Cooper. Yes. The Raiders are going to continue to be a carousel at running back. This week against the Panthers, you're going to probably see a lot of Zamir White. You might get a goal line opportunity for Madison, but as long as Amir Abdullah is pitching in at running back 3, I'm not really comfortable starting Madison until things change. I'm going to still go with CJ. You got to go with CJ Stroud. That offense, especially if Joe Mixon's dinged up, they might have to rely on CJ. And we're waiting for that big Tank Dell moment. If Tank Dell, Nico, and Diggs are all hitting on the same cylinders, and it's in Minnesota this weekend. So I think CJ, Diggs, I think it's all going to be working this week. I'm going to go CJ Stroud. Yeah, it was the Bears did everything right this offseason except offensive coordinator, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I was down on the Bears overall. Like, I don't have any Bears in any of my leagues. I was out on DeAndre Swift. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He did figure out that Cole Kmet should be the tight end 1, though, so I'll give him that. Hopefully they can change some more things and keep Caleb protected, but it's looking pretty bad right now for Bears fans. I do think they bounce back a little bit this week, but very questionable hire. And yeah, exactly. That's the point. Like, JSN in 2 games, man, we're all the way back in on JSN, and Metcalf looks like he's primed for a career season. Shane Waldron, man, I think they got to give him the door. I think you got to show him the door. How much would you put on Jordan Whittington? A lot of that is based on need. If you need a potential starting wide receiver 3 flex this week, you probably got to spend $8 to $10. If you just want to add him to your team, my bid's probably $7 or $8, something in that range. I do think Whittington's a guy that's going to continue to get more work as the year goes on. So I'm willing to be a little aggressive, but you got to, your league mates best. You also know who else is out there on the waiver wire. So if you need them, spend more. If you just need a bench play, $7, $8 should do the trick. Samuel's droppable right now, man, and it sucks. Like, he was one of my favorite players, but I think that little injury kind of, pushed him back on the depth chart, and it looks like they're comfortable with Shakir. They're going to run Keon Coleman a bunch of routes. They're going to run a lot of Mac Hollins routes. I wish they would change that and get Shakir and Samuel on the field together because I think those are their two best receivers. But for now, I think Samuel he's droppable at the moment. But we're going on about 50 minutes here, guys. If there's one more question, I will take it. Otherwise, tomorrow evening, we're doing the members start sit program, where if you guys are a member, you guys can follow along, and I'll go over all 16 games for week number 3. And then otherwise, Thursday night, we'll be back 6:30 p.m. Central Time. I might have a guest with me to talk some football and answer your questions. So Thursday night, we'll be back for your start sit questions. Otherwise, if you guys want to go to thefantasyfellowship.com and sign up for a membership, I will be going live tomorrow, 7 p.m. to cover all of your games for week 3. But this was a lot of fun, guys. We're back at it, like grinding the waivers. This is how you win your championships here. So if you guys do have more questions, reach out to me on Twitter, comment the video, all that good stuff, and I can help you guys out there. But thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good luck on your waivers, guys. We'll see you soon. Peace.